Okay. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on a new episode of MMA Time. Today we have the chance to be with Luke Thomas. Hi Luke.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hi.
Thank you very much. You are the senior editor at MMAfighting.com, at SB Nation also. People can follow you on Twitter at arrobas SB Luke Thomas. You are on the podcast Promotional Malpractice, sorry. We can hear you on the MMA beat, and also you are a host at Sirius XM, if I'm not mistaken. So we are going to do an interview in three parts. First, we would like to talk a bit about your background. Secondly, UFC 196. And to finish with, how to groom a young fighter, your vision about it. So I'm going to shoot the first question. I read that you were formed at William and Mary College at Norfolk with a diploma in philosophy, government, and history. And you used to be a former Marine. And everyone that knows you, even in France, can notice that you have a very technical vision about martial arts. That's your specificity, sorry, I do believe, as a journalist, not the only one, but you are a really technical journalist. Can you talk to us about your background and how you became the journalist that you are today?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's not too complicated. I graduated from college in '02. I had 2 more years left in the Marine Corps. That was as a reservist. And I had done some martial arts stuff in the Marine Corps. I'd actually had a family friend who had introduced me to UFC. I think the first 4 or 5 UFCs had already happened, so we had to go rent them at the video store at the time. And so I had always been exposed to it. I had known about it. I'd been very intrigued by it, but I had not pursued in any kind of way beyond casual interest. And then a little bit again in the Marine Corps, a little bit in college, a little bit of judo in college, but not much. And then after that, I just sort of got into it again. I don't know why. I think I had seen it on TV, and I was like, oh man, I hadn't really kept up with it as much as I'd want to during my college years. I'd watched it, throughout high school to an extent. And then I just realized I was bored one day, so I started my own website talking about it, because I went to all the websites that were talking about it, and they weren't talking about it like I wanted to hear about it. The discussion was very plain. The news was very straightforward. There was no one really discussing opinion in a way that I found particularly interesting. And it turns out that there were people like that. I just didn't know they existed, but it wasn't automatic. So I started my own website, and then one thing led to another. And then when the Ultimate Fighter hit, it just kind of, in this country anyway, it just kind of took off. It just became a life of its own, and I was able to go full time a few years after that. It took a few years of part-time work and doing my full-time regular job, and then that. But eventually one overcame the other, and I haven't looked back since. And yeah, it's really as simple as that. It was, a lot of people want to say it's this person has this ability, that person has that ability, and maybe that's true. But a lot of life is also just the right timing. I was just doing stuff at a time when not a lot of other people were. There we go. Not a lot of people were. And as a consequence, when it all exploded, I was there to surf the wave, right?
Yeah. And I do believe you train yourself. You train in MMA in a gym.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done striking in years. And actually, it's interesting. I messed my back up. Man, I want to say around Halloween.
Yeah.
So that would be what, October for us? And I've trained literally twice since then.
I think you suffered the same injury as Cain Velasquez, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe so, but he got surgery for it, and I didn't. I've been physically rehabbing like 5 times a week to get it back. I will tell you what, man. Cain Velasquez is a real athlete, and I am a real not athlete. So he's going to repair a lot quicker than everyone else. But I'll tell you, I've had my shoulder repaired from lifting weights, and it's just never the same. And your shoulder, if you think about it, like it goes, it goes any number of different directions, right? Like your knee just bends.
Yeah.
Your hand can go all different kinds of directions. So when you get this repaired, you gotta repair it the right way. A back injury is kind of similar. Like everything is built off of your back. I gotta say, man, you have to wonder about his future. Even I'm sure with a great recovery, you start messing with your back and the whole show begins to close. Yeah. So I've not been in the gym for months, but I'm trying to get back in there because it's just hard to get healthy. It really is.
We had the chance of doing an interview with Carlos Condit, a movement coach at One Locker of Movnat. Maybe it might help you because after Carlos' injury, he'd done some marvels with him.
I'll tell you what, at this point, I'm willing to try anything. Acupuncture, yoga. I mean, it's getting a lot better. I would say up until last month, every day I was waking up with pain. Since maybe 4 weeks ago, I'm not waking up with pain, but there's still a lot of like instability. Like it's not very strong yet.
Yeah, but how much does it help you to know how the training goes in analyzing all the fights, all the technical aspects of it, and how much does it really help you? Because all journalists are not necessarily do not necessarily train in MMA.
And also because when you analyze the movement foot, just to give an example of Bisping yesterday in the Monday morning analyst, you analyze the footwork of Michael Bisping as a coach would do. So
well, let me say this as a word of caution. So you should always listen to a pro fighter before listening to me. That doesn't mean necessarily there might be a moment where I'm right, but I am not a pro fighter. I'm not even an amateur fighter. I'm just a guy who shows up and pays attention. That's it. But I do think that, for a very long time, people always talked about technique like it was this thing you could only get at the top of this mountain where this kung fu master lived, and only the very few people who ever climbed the mountain could ever get it. And that's just really not true. Why do we treat technical knowledge like it's some special form of knowledge?
Yeah.
It's not. It's not specialized at all, other than, like any other form of knowledge, you got to put in the time to go get it. But other than that, there's nothing particularly different about technical knowledge. We always treat it like, well, that's the fighter's province. And it is. They're going to know it better than me and you and everyone watching probably 99.99999% of the time. That's really true. But you should always, I feel, at least make an attempt to have a basic understanding, slightly advanced and slightly advanced and slightly advanced. There's no reason why you shouldn't, again, time permitting. What is the difference between you knowing something and not knowing something? It's going out into the street, getting on the subway, and going to a gym and paying a guy money. That's all. That's the only barrier is just paying a guy money and showing up.
Yeah.
So I really reject this idea that, like, well, journalists are just supposed to say, I can pay attention a little bit, but I don't want to dig my toes. No, you should pay attention. It doesn't make you an expert overnight, for sure, but it at least can inform your judgment. And over time, you might learn a few things.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about journalists, but what about coaches? Do coaches who never really practiced or who never really competed at an elite level, can they be the greatest teachers, maybe? Not necessarily being fighters themselves?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I have found that the best jiu-jitsu teachers I've ever had have been one of two varieties. Or I should say, let me take that back. The best jiu-jitsu seminars I've ever been to have been in one of two varieties. Number one, somebody who's really famous and really good, right? So like Murillo Santana. So in the jiu-jitsu world, highly respected, elite level black belt, okay? And they just know things that you're like, oh my God, like I didn't even think of it that way, But I'll tell you the truth. It's also true that these guys, and this is not just true for jiu-jitsu, this is true for kickboxing, boxing, to a lesser extent wrestling, because wrestling is super mental. But the guys who are not naturally good at things and yet tried to get really good and maybe even got pretty good, but had to work super hard to get there, they're the best coaches I've ever seen. Because guys who are really physically gifted, a lot of stuff just comes natural to them and they don't realize that. They don't understand that their body just responds to things in ways the average person's is not. But somebody who's not necessarily all that physically gifted, man, to get to a black belt, wow, they got a really, I mean, BJ Penn, it took him 4 years to get to a black belt. Now, obviously, he's going to know about a lot of jiu-jitsu because he's so good at it. But I bet you the guy it took to get to 10 years with black belt, he might be a better teacher because he had to get every fine step along the way, and it was a lot harder for him to figure it out. Those guys can end up being really, really insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Conor McGregor said, obsession over talent, maybe.
And look at Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson never competed in the UFC. He's probably been in a fair share of his own scuffles, both in the street and then for sport. But the fact of the matter is, he thinks about it all the time. He has to problem solve for big guys, small guys, long opponents, short opponents, men, women, whatever. And he's constantly having to think about all these different things. Over time, it has created this wealth of wisdom. He didn't get it from fighting, but he's gotten every single detail along the way.
Okay. Well, we wanted to talk about another thing completely, the UFC 196. We'd like to have your view about not necessarily the changes, the fact that Nate Diaz replaced Dos Anjos and everything else, the trash talking, just the technical aspect of it. What do you think both Conor and Nate need to do to win? What should be their game plans going into the fight?
Well, I definitely like Conor's chances a lot more than I like Nate's. Obviously, and you guys watch enough MMA, you just don't know. Every time you're sure, this guy's going to win, they wind up losing. You know how that goes. So I definitely favor McGregor pretty highly, but you never know. Look, for McGregor, it's pretty simple, right? You're at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, but you've had a camp. You haven't had to cut as much weight. You're really good at cutting angles. You're really good at timing good counter strikes. If I'm him, I'm going to pressure Diaz enough to elicit a reaction and then counter that reaction. Nate Diaz comes forward, and then Nick Diaz too. They come forward in relatively straight lines, right? A little bit, not so much, but they throw a lot of heavy volume, a lot of combination striking. If I'm Conor McGregor, I want Nate Diaz to extend, get on the outside, and then make him pay for it, basically, is the simplest way of saying that. And that should not be that difficult. He should be the quicker guy. He should be the more athletic guy, generally. And he should know that's what's going to happen. If you know you're going to fight a guy who fights in straight lines, then you have to be the one doing this, right? It's just sort of really basic. If I'm Nate Diaz, I think the way I'm trying to counter that is you definitely want to be first with the jab, right? If you have a 2-inch reach disadvantage, you want to be the first to constantly extend. Well, not always extend, but you generally want to be the first one because that's going to disrupt the rhythm of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is not a rhythm fighter in like that Muay Thai sense, but what I will say is he definitely likes to start slow, fire shots, and as the fight goes on, he increases the volume load as it goes along. You want to stop that before it progresses. You want to really be in his face. You want to make sure he's having to answer that. I don't know that Nate Diaz is the guy to wrestle with him. I don't think that's going to work necessarily, although Nate has some throws from that whizzer, right? Yeah. But that, to me, is the way to do it. If Diaz is the one getting beat to the punch or is being reactive to McGregor's feints or whatever, that's going to be a long night for him or maybe a short one.
And I'd like to know, as a journalist, but also as a MMA fan, we are in a period of a total unknown to what future holds for Conor McGregor. Is he going back to 145 to defend his title? Is he going to deal with RDA at UFC 200 or maybe Lawler? Is it the most exciting period of your life as a journalist and as a MMA fan because of the uncertainty?
It's a good question. Is it the most exciting? It's certainly up there. It is up there. This is the first time in any of our lives, and this is true. This is the first time that the biggest MMA fighters are bigger than the biggest boxers. Now, Saul Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez is pretty big. He's kind of right up there. mostly with McGregor or Rousey, but I don't think he's bigger, to be perfectly honest. Look who's, you're in France, maybe you don't appreciate this, but, McGregor's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. That is a big deal.
Yeah, it seems to be a big deal in the States.
Trust me when I tell you, that's a very, very big deal. Not the, doesn't change the sport forever, but it's big. And, you just didn't see stuff like this even 4 or 5 years ago. I thought that the Brock Lesnar era was going to be the biggest one. I remember when Brock Lesnar would compete, it'd be the only time I would get like a lot of media requests to talk about fights from mainstream sports outlets. And with McGregor and Rousey, because it's basically the two of them together, that's happening way more in a much grander scale than I ever thought possible. So it's definitely the most exciting. But in terms of like the uncertainty of it all, my guess is a lot hinges on this fight. So if he wins, McGregor does, let's say by stoppage, I think really he's still going to go back to 155. But even if he loses that, he might try a 170 super fight. I don't think that's out of the question at all. And of course, if he wins at 155, then he's definitely going to go to 170. But I think if he loses to Diaz, it'll be much more a 145, 155 kind of scenario. If he can't beat Diaz on short notice, who hasn't been a welterweight for years at welterweight, doesn't really look so good for his chances. But I guess I would say this, a lot of guys have played with weight class movement when they lose, right? So they lose at 155 3 times. In order to avoid being cut, they'll go down to featherweight. You see a lot of that. Only when guys are really successful do you see them go up in weight class because they don't have enough challenges, like Anderson Silva did at 205 pounds. If McGregor can do that with not one but 2 weight classes, he would be showing us that at least at a very high level, the gaps separating the weight classes are not as ironclad as we thought they were.
Even though Luke Rockhold talked about it a few days ago, he said that if Cormier would retire and if Cain Velasquez would retire, he would consider going up in the light heavyweight and in the heavyweight. So it seems that Conor is giving inspiration to other fighters, because I do feel that the division in which Luke Rockhold is pretty weak, actually, and that's why he might want in the future go up at the light heavyweight also.
I mean, if Chris Weidman can't beat him a second time, or the second time they fight, who can? It's not really clear, right? And it's interesting, in other sports, not so much in wrestling, but definitely in jiu-jitsu, right? For example, you go to any tournament, not most tournaments, and they'll have an open weight division. And again, the smaller guys don't, eventually get weeded out. But you see some really interesting, fun matchups, and guys who you feel like would lose, not so much on skill, but on size. They don't lose as often as you think. Again, there comes a point where, you get a guy like a Buchecha who's just too big and too athletic for, Rafa Mendez or something like that, and he can get injured when there's too much of a weight disadvantage. But I guess what I'm just saying is things get a lot more interesting the more weight changes, and guys are beginning to realize, hey, if things aren't going for me so well in this weight class, I can try going up another one or try going back and forth, and I can really make my career last longer. Mo Lawal, King Mo's been doing it in Bellator and all his other organizations for a long time. I think it's worked well for him, even with all the setbacks he's had.
Yeah, but about Conor himself, I feel personally that's crazy for him to think he can compete with the elite guys at welterweight. We just saw so many wars, so many great fights, so many...
I could see him against Lawler, but I have real trouble against Thompson.
Rory, Robbie, even the not top guys, I don't see him competing that great against them. What do you feel about that? Are we underestimating Conor again, once again?
Maybe. Here's the funny part about Conor McGregor. Like, Eddie Alvarez said something kind of interesting, I thought, the other day. He was like, everyone is fighting him wrong. Everyone should be fighting him on the ground. And I do think that's a bit simplistic. Like, I don't think that's really just the obvious answer. And I definitely feel like McGregor can handle himself in every area well enough. But there's two things to think about. Number one, he probably has the best left hand in the game, right? Who's got a better left-handed punch than him? I don't know. It's pretty clear from the left side. Yeah. The timing, the power, the way it changes opponents. Like, what he does is, if he doesn't knock you out with it, he makes people change their priorities in an instant. In an instant, all the things they want to do is done, and they change their priorities. And that means they make bad decisions. And when they make bad decisions, he makes good decisions, right? So there's that. That's the first part. The second part I think I would say is I definitely feel like at some point, and I don't know when it's going to come, maybe it's the Diaz fight. I don't think so, but we'll see. But at some point, someone is going to show us what the limit is of Conor McGregor. Someone's going to handle him at some point because everyone gets handled. It's just inevitable. But I still feel like he'll have shown us the things he'll want to have shown us. He'll have shown us you can jump weight more than you think you can, that there are a lot of guys who are easy to predict in the way in which they compete, and that he can have success across multiple weight classes. Can he really have a sustained career at 170? Probably not. But I bet you he's going to raise your eyebrows a lot more than you think he is.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Okay, so now we'd like to talk to you about how to groom a young fighter. We did talk to Brendan Gibson, the striking coach.
Yeah, he's great.
Great. And he has a young fighter under his tutelage who is French, Tom Duquesnoy. I don't know if you have heard about it.
I mean, forgive my French. In my terrible French, Duquesnoy is how we say it. He is amazing.
He's amazing. And you talked a lot on your podcast about the Sage Northcutt loss. Why it was a big deal and why it was not a big deal at all to this loss. So I'd like to give you just a few examples and then take your blueprint for you on how to groom a young fighter. You've got Paige Van Zandt, who is at the Alpha Male team. She's growing among great fighters, but there is a lack and a problem of structure. You got Sage Northcutt, who is rushing into fights, and you got Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, who are really young, talented fighters. Tom Duquesnoy, who is in the BAMA, so not in the spotlight of the UFC, but just under. And just to take a last example, but he's not a young fighter, but it makes me think about box, and how to grow step by step, is Conor Mcgregor. Before fighting Jose Aldo, he fought against Mendes, and I think it gave him time to prepare the Aldo fight. Now he's fighting against Nate Diaz at 170, and it gives him the time to prepare if in the future he wants to go against Lawler, to construct himself and to build himself as a fighter. What would be you, as a trainer or as a journalist, your blueprint to groom a young fighter, even if everyone is unique and in his own way? Sorry.
Boy, that's a tough question, because you said something at the end there that I think is the most critical, and it sounds like I may be trying to not answer, but it's not true. The fact of the matter is, the best coaches, I feel, are the ones who understand who their fighters are better than anybody else. John Kavanagh understands who Conor McGregor is in ways you or I, hell, maybe even other guys in that gym don't even know. Greg Jackson, or let's say Mike Winklejohn, knows who Holly Holm is because he's been training with her since she was a teenager, right? You have to know who they are as people, how their character is, how they make decisions. Are they naturally defensive? Are they naturally offensive? In what environments do they succeed? What do they look to you as a trainer for? Are they looking for an authority figure? Are they looking for someone to mentally give them strategic advice because they can carry it out but maybe can't conceive of it themselves? I've seen that scenario as well. The best trainers are the ones that form the best relationships that make the two together the most complete. That's really the best. Like, people have often said, well, what if John Kavanagh only ever produces a Conor McGregor and doesn't produce anyone else that's really, really good? Will that mean he's an overrated trainer? No, it won't mean that at all. In fact, the fact that he already produced a Conor McGregor is evidence of the fact that he has a special ability. But you see these other gyms, what they do is they recruit different guys. They go out and they get the best and then pull them in there. That's going to be hard to do over in Ireland versus the United States. So I just want to make that point to start. It's very much about understanding who that person is, who understanding themselves, and how the two fit together. But really, and, you mentioned the Paige, you mentioned Sage. These are people that have a lot of ability, but promotionally are being rushed Tom Duquesnoy is different because he has given up UFC opportunities to stay in Bama and polish his skills, which I find to be very admirable. So to me, I don't know that there is a single blueprint exactly, other than to say, you know, are you seeing a lot of prospects come up the ranks now who technically they're a little bit short of where they need to be? I think you are. I think you're seeing a lot of that because there's such a thirst for stars. We want the next big thing. We want the next guy who is so popular, who will sign autographs and be on the cover of Sports Illustrated or whatever the case. And for me, like Sage Northcutt, you know, there's two red flags. One is that he's being rushed way too quickly, even though I think he's very talented. And two, you know, the first time someone kind of put it on him, he tapped what I would consider to be something that you shouldn't really tap to at that level. That means to me he needs to be thrashed a little bit more. Now, not too much that he's not good anymore because he loses all of his humanity in the gym, but there's a case to be made. There's a toughening process for that level that needs to happen. Paige is quite the opposite. She seems to have too much toughness for her own good and a real lack of technical sophistication. I don't know if I'm giving you a great answer. I just don't know. But I guess what I'm thinking about is, guys, last thing I'll say about this. Here we go. In boxing, you often see a lot of father-son combinations. You often see a lot of older guy, younger guy combinations, like really old, younger guy, because there's a bit of a father figure thing going on there. They're rearing a child, both either literally or metaphorically, in a way for battle. And they have a keen eye for just the right challenge at just the right time, at just the moment in their development. That, I think, is really the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really interesting what you said about the coach knowing his fighter or someone he grooms, because Marc Raimondi, we interviewed him last week, and or 2 weeks ago, I don't know. And he said, because I was kind of attacking Edmond Tarverdian, and I said it seemed crazy, like what he said in between rounds, you know, at the end of round one. And he said it might be what Ronda needed to hear at that point, that she was great, that she was the best, that she was doing awesome. And for an exterior eye, I don't know how to say it, it seemed like bad advice. And it reflects on what you just said about coaches.
There's a famous example of this. If you go back to either the first or second Sam Stout versus Spencer Fisher fight, I think it was the first one, Sean Tompkins was still alive. He is now since deceased. Sean Tompkins did an interview, I think, with like Mauro Ranallo. I can't remember. But Joe Rogan had commented on the advice that Sean Tompkins had given Sam Stout. And the advice was, after a round he had clearly lost and was getting hit pretty hard, Sean Tompkins' advice was, you're doing great, blah, 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 keep it going. And if that's all you heard, you were like, what? And on the broadcast, Joe Rogan was like, I completely disagree. Sean Tompkins then went and got on the radio after the fight was over and goes, I told Sam that because A, he wasn't doing the game plan, so I told him to stick to the game plan, and B, Sam doesn't work off advice like, I need you to change, this isn't working, you got to get it together. He doesn't respond to that. What he responds to is positive reinforcement. So to you or to me, it sounds like he's lying or delusional or an idiot. But between those two, in that little universe, that's everything that makes sense. And that's, again, getting back to Sean Tompkins. You look at his record with guys like Mark Hominick and guys like Sam Stout. Look at the piece that Sean El-Shadi did for us. And it shows their record with him and their record without him. It is clear that he is not just an ability to make you better or me better, but he can form a bond, a relationship. And in that relationship, he can do a lot.
Okay, so now we are going to do a quick Q&A, and Sweb is going to start with you.
Yeah, okay. So if you were a UFC fighter, okay, let's picture that. Where would you want to train? In which gym would you want to train?
I would want to train with American Top Team, I guess.
In Miami? Because of the sun or because of the coaches?
The coaches are interesting, and the weather is probably pretty nice.
Okay. What would be your entrance song as a fighter?
Oof. Anything by Chuck Brown, Bustin' Loose, which I'm sure you've never heard,
No,
but that's okay.
absolutely not.
Don't ring a bell.
What's your favorite combat movie?
You mean like a action movie?
No, like maybe a Van Damme or a Bruce
Or,
Lee or
Scorsese,
Rocky,
Raging Bull,
Raging Bull.
It's got to be Bloodsport for sure.
Great choice.
Okay. What fight would you dream to see, to witness, if you could organize one?
You mean in person or just?
No. If you were in the place
matchmaker,
of a matchmaker, and you say, "Luke Thomas, organize a fight in the UFC." What do you want to see?
I would want to see. Wow, that's tough. I would want to see.
They're
John...
making.
Say again.
They're making all the great choices, the UFC. So
I
we
would
don't
love
have
to
to.
see
We don't have
Yair
to.
Rodriguez against Brian Ortega for myself.
Yeah, I would want to see I would want to see John Jones. I would want to see John Jones versus, I guess, Fabricio Verdum. You know, I would want to see John Jones at like a real heavyweight test, I guess.
Yeah, you're not the first one. Maybe Brandon Gibson said that. I don't know. Or
He said that it might actually happen in a few years.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you were in the UFC as a fighter, etc., who would you dream to fight, and who would you fear to fight?
Jesus, I'd fear to fight all of them. But I think it'd be kind of interesting to. I think it'd be kind of interesting to fight. I would want to, you know what? Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? And I'll tell you why. He would thrash the shit out of me. But, you know, one thing I really like about him, I think he has the best takedowns, and I think he has the best grappling generally in MMA. And I'll tell you why. I've said it before. You know, a lot of guys who come from the American wrestling style, they've got that double leg, single leg, shoot in on you, and that's very good, you know? But you see a lot of these judo guys, they need to clinch at the upper body, and those are good too. You know, Rousey's made a good work of it, Carl Parisian. But Nurmagomedov has everything. He's got all the takedowns from the clinch, body locks, trips, throws. He's got singles, doubles. He can pass guard. He can submit. He can ride from different positions. I've never seen a guy with all these different universes, with all these different takedowns. They never really meet. Judo players go to judo competitions. Wrestlers go to wrestling competitions. They don't ever cross-train that often. Nurmagomedov is one of the first guys I've ever seen who has excellent single-leg takedowns and an excellent Harai Goshi, an excellent, you know, folk-style ride from a leg ride. Yeah. You don't ever see guys like that. I would want to be I would want to be beaten by him just to see what it feels like for someone to have that kind of ability.
Even though Dana said to him that he fought against bears 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, he can beat. I mean, he's out there fighting animals, literally. So he's got some ability, but that's all the more reason to be like, what does it really feel like when a guy like that gets his hands on you?
Okay, so Holm or Tate?
Holm, but I don't know. It's close.
And Jones or Cormier?
I like Jones pretty heavily in that one. The first fight was much closer than people remember. It was not a blowout, but I think the second one's going to be a blowout.
Ferguson or Khabib? It's a tough one.
Here's the thing. If Khabib had not been off for 2 years, I would say him. But with the layoff, I got to go Ferguson, and that breaks my heart to say.
Even though Dominic Cruz showed that for a true champ, there is no ring rust.
Dominic Cruz is a cyborg. He's the Terminator sent back in time to do things that ordinary mortals and human beings can't do. I admire his mental strength, but most people are not that way, including elite UFC fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. And another tough one, Rockhold against Weidman.
No, I don't think that's that tough. I like Rockhold to win. I'm sure that Weidman was not himself in that fight. He didn't look like himself in that fight. But that was a pretty thorough beating, and I just feel like unless Rockhold used to be wild and make a lot of mistakes, and he doesn't do that anymore. He's still athletic, and he makes much, much better choices than he used to. I have a hard time seeing how Weidman wins that one.
It was announced today, Gunnar Nelson against Chimenov.
Ooh.
They're gonna fight in Rotterdam, I do believe.
I'm going to say Tumanov, but that's a great test. That's a great test.
Absolutely. And to finish up, just like Conor said, timing or speed, if you had to choose.
Timing, always.
Precision.
You don't have to be the fastest person on earth, but if you're timing, you can beat anybody. That's a fact.
Precision or power?
I like power more. Who doesn't?
And last one, and we talked about it, obsession or talent?
Got to be obsession. We have a couple of sayings here. Hard work will always beat talent when talent refuses to work hard. And talent is a wonderful thing. It really is. When you see somebody naturally talented at anything, you know, you guys know how it is. You see basketball players, pianists,
Yeah.
Anybody who's naturally gifted, you're like, it just takes your breath away. But the really great ones, the ones you remember forever, are the ones who had that kind of ability and worked relentlessly either to get better or to produce as much content, let's say they're an artist, as they could. Those are the people that it's hard work. Talent is amazing, but the hard work is really what separates everyone.
I do agree 100% with you, because today we have the example of Conor Mcgregor, who is giving all in his training, and we have John Jones, who is talented, but with problem driving, and we have Anderson Silva. He could have win easily this fight if he had been obsessed to finish the fight. And not because Bisping is not a great fighter. He showed a tremendous heart in the fight. But I think that Silva, even though he had the talent, didn't have the will and the obsession to finish Bisping. So yes, I think it's obsession over talent, maybe.
And McGregor is not being honest with himself. He is obviously very naturally talented. But the truth of the matter is, I think it was the guy who invented the light bulb. His name is Thomas Edison. Yeah. And he said genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You know, 1% having an idea, but 99% sweating it out, working, just figuring out something to do with that. And that's the balance. Yes, you have to have that idea. Yes, you have to have that insight. You got to have that ability. But then all the work after that, that's what makes it real.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just the last question.
Last one. I believe you're a Washington Redskins fan, no?
Reluctantly, but yes.
So, and your wife is Colombian. So, what would be greater for you and your family? Colombia winning Copa America or Washington Redskins winning the Super Bowl?
Wow, that's a tough one. Woo. I would say the Skins winning the Super Bowl because you have to be 21 years old to drink alcohol, right? Which is stupid, but it's true. That means you can go to a bar here and you can get served by a bartender who is old enough to legally work there and give you a drink and has never seen the Redskins win a Super Bowl. That's how long it's been since it's happened. Now, I don't even know if Colombia has ever won the Copa America.
Yeah, they did.
But there at least is a tournament all the time. It's unpredictable. They beat Brazil in the last one, however crazy that was. So they have their chances. But the Skins they need help. They need help.
Yeah, but you have a quarterback now. You have Kirk Cousins. You believe in Cousins?
Well, I think he won't be
not fast enough.
Here's what I'll say. If they build the right team around him, he won't be the reason that they win or lose a Super Bowl. He's good enough to fill his role. It's much more about the other guys that they need to build.
Yeah, okay.
Luke, thank you for your time.
And good luck to the Skins.
We really appreciated your presence with us. That was a great opportunity for us.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. And
we hope that you enjoy UFC 196 and the others to come. And
well, same to you guys. Keep going with the podcast, and I'm happy to be on, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Just follow me on Twitter, and you'll get everything you need.
Exactly. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Luke.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.